The deep space research vessel Starseeker drifted silently through the star-speckled void near the Carina Nebula. Inside the ship's main science lab, Chief Science Officer Angela Wright rubbed her tired eyes and checked the readings on her screen for the 100th time that day. The strange energy patterns she had been tracking for the past week still made no sense. "Computer, run the analysis again," she said, reaching for her coffee cup. The liquid inside had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed as she took a sip. The holographic display in front of her flickered to life, showing waves of unusual energy that seemed to move against the normal laws of physics. A gentle knock on the lab's doorframe made her look up. Captain Peter Morrison stood there, his weathered face showing concern. "Another late night, Angela." "Peter, I think you need to see this," she said, waving him over to her workstation. "These energy readings, they're like nothing we've ever encountered before." The captain leaned in, his gray eyes scanning the data streams. "What exactly am I looking at?" "That's just it," Angela said, pointing to the shifting patterns. "These energy formations are moving with purpose. They're not random. They're organized in ways that suggest." She hesitated, knowing how crazy it would sound. "Suggest what?" Peter asked, though his tone indicated he already knew where this was going. "Intelligence," Angela finished. "I think we're looking at conscious energy patterns." Before the captain could respond, the ship's alert system activated. Red warning lights bathed the lab in a crimson glow. "Bridge to Captain Morrison." First Officer Laura Bennett's voice came through the comm system. "Sir, we're detecting a massive energy surge directly ahead." "On my way," Peter replied, already heading for the door. "Angela, you're with me." They rushed to the bridge, where the main view screen showed what looked like a curtain of shimmering light, rippling through space like an aurora. The crew stood at their stations, transfixed by the sight. "Status report," Peter ordered, settling into his command chair. "Energy levels are off the charts," reported engineer Amy Patterson from her console. "But there's no radiation danger. It's unlike anything in our database." "Sir," called out communications specialist Lisa Carter, "I'm picking up something. It's not radio waves or any normal form of communication, but there's definitely a pattern." Angela rushed to her science station, fingers flying over the controls. "The energy patterns match what I've been studying. They're becoming more complex, more organized. It's like they're trying to." She never finished her sentence. The bridge lighting flickered, and suddenly the air itself seemed to come alive with dancing motes of light. They swirled together, forming what looked like a tall, vaguely humanoid shape made of pure energy. Security Chief Daniel Ross immediately drew his sidearm, but Peter held up a hand. "Stand down, Lieutenant. Let's not start an interstellar incident." The glowing figure seemed to study them, its form shifting and flowing like liquid light. When it spoke, it wasn't with sound but rather with pulses of energy that somehow formed words directly in their minds. "Physical beings," the voice echoed in their thoughts. "How curious that you have managed to reach this far, bound as you are to your material forms." Angela stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her initial fear. "We're from Earth, representing humanity. I'm Chief Science Officer Angela Wright. We're on a mission of peaceful exploration." The energy being's form rippled, something like amusement coloring its mental voice. "So primitive, yet you achieve space travel. We are what you might call the Ethereals. We evolved beyond physical form eons ago." "Evolved beyond physical form," Daniel muttered, his hand still near his weapon. "That's convenient." The Ethereal turned its attention to him, its light dimming slightly. "You doubt the superiority of pure energy existence. Your reliance on crude matter limits you in ways you cannot comprehend." Peter stepped between them, ever the diplomat. "We're all limited in some ways and capable in others. Perhaps we could learn from each other." More light beings appeared on the bridge, their forms merging and separating like dancers in a cosmic ballet. The temperature in the room fluctuated as they moved about, examining the crew and their equipment with what seemed like a mixture of curiosity and disdain. Your technology is interesting. One of them communicated, passing through a computer terminal as if it weren't there. Though primitive, you use machines to accomplish what consciousness alone should do. Lisa Carter, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Yet you chose to appear to us in humanoid form. Why is that, if physical forms are so limiting? The Ethereal's light dimmed momentarily, and Angela could have sworn she detected embarrassment in their energy patterns. The first being responded, "We assumed this shape would be comfortable for you, a courtesy to lesser beings." Lesser beings. Daniel stepped forward, his voice tight. "We may not be made of pure energy, but we've built this ship, explored the stars, and created art and music and literature. What have you created lately that isn't just patterns of light?" "Daniel," Peter warned, but the security chief's words had struck a nerve. The Ethereal's forms became more rigid, their light more intense. "We have transcended the need for physical creation," they proclaimed. "We exist in a state of pure thought and energy. Your achievements, while impressive for physical beings, are merely stepping stones to true evolution." Angela, who had been taking readings throughout the encounter, suddenly noticed something interesting on her instruments. "Captain," she said quietly, "I'm detecting fluctuations in their energy patterns when they interact with our technology. It's almost as if they have to exert themselves to maintain their form in our presence." The Ethereals moved back slightly, their forms wavering. "Your material environment is taxing," they admitted. "We do not usually interact with physical beings for extended periods." Peter nodded thoughtfully. "Then perhaps we should continue this discussion in a way that's more comfortable for everyone. We could set up a specialized communication system." "No," the Ethereals interrupted. "We will teach you to transcend your physical limitations. It is the only way forward for your species." The crew exchanged concerned looks. Lisa stepped closer to Peter and whispered, "Sir," their tone. "I don't think this is just scientific curiosity anymore." "Agreed," Peter replied quietly. Then, to the Ethereals, "While we appreciate your offer, we're not looking to transcend our physical forms. We're here to learn and exchange knowledge as equals." The Ethereal's light pulsed with what could only be described as frustration. "You cannot hope to understand the universe while trapped in flesh and bone. We offer enlightenment, yet you cling to your limitations." "Our physical forms aren't limitations," Angela countered, growing bolder as she studied her readings. "They're part of who we are, how we experience and understand the universe. Different doesn't mean inferior." The lead Ethereal moved closer to her, its light almost blinding. "You speak of things you cannot understand, child of matter. We have existed for millions of your years. We have seen galaxies born and die. What could you possibly teach us?" Before anyone could respond, the ship's sensors blared another warning. Amy Patterson's fingers flew over her console. "Captain, I'm detecting a massive disturbance in subspace. Something's coming through, and it's big." The Ethereal's forms flickered violently, their light dimming. "No," their collective thought echoed with something none of the crew expected to hear from such advanced beings. "Fear. They have found us again." Peter turned to face them. "Who has found you? What's coming?" But the Ethereals were already retreating, their forms becoming transparent. "Prepare yourselves, children of matter," they transmitted. "The ravagers have come, and neither your physical weapons nor our energy manipulation may be enough to stop them." As the Ethereals vanished from the bridge, the view screen showed a massive tear opening in the fabric of space itself. Through it came something that made everyone's blood run cold. A ship that looked like a hybrid of organic matter and machine, its surface writhing with mechanical tentacles and pulsing within sickly green light. Peter Morrison stood from his command chair, his face set with determination. "All hands to battle stations," he ordered. "I have a feeling we're about to find out if being physical beings is really such a limitation after all." The Starseeker's warning klaxons echoed through the ship as the crew prepared to face whatever horrors were emerging from that spatial tear. And somewhere in the void around them, The Ethereals watched, about to learn some hard lessons about the value of having a physical form in a universe where threats came in all shapes and sizes. The Ravager ship hung in space like a twisted nightmare, its biomechanical tendrils probing the void. On the Starseeker's bridge, Captain Peter Morrison watched as his crew prepared for whatever might come next. Shields at maximum, engineer Amy Patterson reported, her fingers dancing across her console. But I don't know how effective they'll be against something like that. Before anyone could respond, the Ethereals reappeared, their light forms dimmer than before. You must leave this sector immediately, they transmitted. The Ravagers will consume everything in their path. Security Chief Daniel Ross stepped forward. And what about you? You're just going to run away. We do not run, the lead Ethereal pulsed indignantly. We transcend physical space. There is a difference. Lisa Carter, still at her communication station, studied the energy patterns of their visitors. After their first encounter, she had begun to notice subtle variations in their light signatures, their equivalent of body language. Right now, they were showing signs she interpreted as fear, though they tried to hide it behind their usual air of superiority. If these Ravagers are such a threat, Lisa said carefully, perhaps we could work together to stop them. The Ethereal's forms flickered in what seemed like nervous laughter. What could physical beings do against such an enemy? Your weapons are crude. Your understanding is limited. Yet you came back to warn us. Angela Wright pointed out from her science station. Why bother if we're so primitive? Before the Ethereals could answer, the massive Ravager ship moved. Its mechanical tentacles stretched out, releasing hundreds of smaller craft that looked like metallic insects crossed with predatory fish. Multiple hostile launches detected, Daniel reported, his voice tense. They're heading straight for us. Peter stood from his command chair. Sound general quarters. All hands to battle stations. Amy, divert auxiliary power to weapons. Angela, I want everything you can tell me about those ships. The Ethereals watched in what seemed like fascination as the human crews sprang into action. The bridge transformed into a hub of coordinated activity, each person knowing their role and executing it with practiced efficiency. Fascinating, one of the ethereal beings transmitted. You operate your machinery as if it were part of your bodies. That's because it is, Lisa explained while monitoring communications channels. We design our technology to work with us, not replace us. The first wave of Ravager ships reached weapons range. On the main view screen, their true horror became clear. They were cybernetic abominations that seemed to be made of both living tissue and machine parts. Energy signatures are off the scale, Angela reported. They're using some kind of hybrid power source, part biological, part technological. The Ethereals moved closer to her display. Yes, they consume both organic matter and energy. They integrate what they devour into their own forms. That is why they are so difficult to stop. Then why haven't they consumed you already? Daniel asked, directing point defense fire at the approaching ships. You're pure energy, aren't you? Again, Lisa noticed that flicker of discomfort in the Ethereal's light patterns. We maintain our distance. Our evolved state makes direct confrontation unnecessary. You mean you run away, Daniel said, scoring a direct hit on one of the Ravager ships. The creature-machine hybrid exploded in a shower of metal and organic debris. We preserve ourselves to continue our higher purpose, the Ethereals insisted, but their tone lacked conviction. Peter watched as more Ravager ships approached. And what exactly is that higher purpose? So far, all I've seen you do is criticize us and avoid danger. The Ethereal's light dimmed slightly. We contemplate the mysteries of existence. We explore consciousness itself. We have evolved beyond the need for physical action. Sir, Amy called out, their main ship is charging some kind of weapon. The massive Ravager vessel's central section began to glow with a sickly green light. Energy readings spiked off the charts. Evasive maneuvers, Peter ordered. Get us out of their firing arc. The Starseeker's engines roared to life, pushing the ship into a tight turn that would have crushed an unprotected crew. But thanks to their artificial gravity and inertial dampeners, more of that crude technology the Ethereals looked down on, the crew barely felt the movement. The Ravager weapon fired, a beam of corrupted energy that would have torn through their shields. But the Starseeker wasn't there anymore. The beam passed through empty space and through several of the ethereal beings who had drifted into its path. The energy beings screamed, not in pain, but in shock. Where the beam touched them, their perfectly controlled energy forms began to destabilize. Our consciousness, they transmitted in panic. They're corrupting our energy patterns. Lisa's eyes widened as she studied the readings. Captain, the Ravager weapon isn't just destroying them. It's trying to absorb them, like they're being downloaded into the Ravager systems. The Ethereals that hadn't been hit clustered together, their light pulsing in obvious distress. This is impossible. We are pure energy, pure thought. We cannot be captured by crude matter. Pure energy follows physical laws just like everything else, Angela said, scanning frantically. And they've figured out those laws. You're not immune to the universe just because you've evolved past having a body. More Ravager ships were launching, and the main vessel was charging for another shot. The Starseeker's weapons blazed, destroying the smaller ships, but they couldn't handle everything at once. We need options, Peter said, watching as the situation grew more desperate. Angela, can we modify our shields to protect the Ethereals? Us? Help them? Daniel asked, still firing at the incoming ships. After how they treated us. They may look down on us, but they're still living beings, Peter said. And right now, they're in trouble. Angela worked quickly at her station. If we can adjust our shield harmonics to match their energy frequency. Amy, I'm sending you the calculations now. Got it. Amy replied, making the adjustments, modifying shield grid. But this will weaken our defenses against physical attacks. The Ethereals watched this exchange with what seemed like confusion. You would risk your safety to protect us, even after our disagreement. That's what crude physical beings do, Lisa said with a small smile. We help each other, even if we don't always get along. The modified shields extended, creating a safe zone for the Ethereals just as another corrupted energy beam fired from the Ravager ship. This time, the beam scattered harmlessly off the shield barrier. The Ethereal's light brightened in relief, but also something else, the first glimmer of respect. Perhaps, their leader transmitted carefully, we have been hasty in our judgment of physical existence. Save the apologies for later, Peter said, watching as more Ravager ships approached. Right now, we need to figure out how to fight these things. And I have a feeling we're going to need both your energy manipulation and our crude technology to do it. The Ethereals moved closer to the bridge crew, their light patterns showing determination for the first time. We are open to suggestions. Good, Peter said, a slight smile crossing his face, because I think it's time to show these Ravagers what happens when ethereal beings and material warriors work together. As if in answer to his words, the Ravager ship launched another wave of attacks. But this time, the crew of the Starseeker wasn't facing them alone. The real question was, would it be enough? The Starseeker shuddered as another blast from the Ravager ship struck their shields. Inside the bridge, warning lights flashed as systems struggled to keep up with the assault. Shield strength down to 60%. Amy Patterson called out from her engineering station. She wiped sweat from her forehead as she worked to reroute power. We can't take much more of this. The Ethereals hovered near Angela Wright's science station, their light forms pulsing with nervous energy. Your defensive barriers are surprisingly resilient, one of them transmitted, but they will not hold forever. Then maybe it's time you told us exactly what we're dealing with, Captain Peter Morrison said, gripping his chair as another blast rocked the ship. What are these Ravagers? Where did they come from? The Ethereal's light dimmed, their collective consciousness projecting a mix of fear and shame. They are our failure. A mistake from long ago, when we first began to transcend physical form. Lisa Carter looked up from her communications console, her eyes widening. You created them. Not intentionally, the lead Ethereal explained. When our civilization first discovered how to transform matter into energy, not all of our kind wished to abandon physical form entirely. Some tried to merge biological and energy states. The results were unstable. Angela's fingers flew across her console as she processed this information. The ravagers are failed attempts at transcendence. They became something worse, the Ethereal continued. Their hunger to evolve corrupted them. Now they consume both matter and energy, trying to achieve what we accomplished. But they can never truly transcend. They can only destroy and absorb. Another blast hit the ship, stronger than before. Daniel Ross fired back, his tactical display showing multiple hits on the smaller ravager vessels, but more kept coming. We need to retreat, Amy said, her voice tense. The shields won't hold against another direct hit from their main weapon. Peter stood from his chair, watching the massive ravager ship on the main screen. If we retreat, they'll just follow us. We need to find a way to stop them here. Impossible, one of the Ethereals pulsed. We have tried for millennia. They cannot be reasoned with, and they adapt to any weapon used against them. Then we need to try something they've never seen before, Angela said suddenly, her eyes lighting up with an idea. She turned to the Ethereals. You said they're trying to achieve transcendence like you did. What if we use that against them? The Ethereal's light flickered with interest. Explain. Their whole existence is based on trying to bridge the gap between physical and energy forms, Angela continued. But they're doing it wrong, trying to force it through consumption rather than true evolution. Lisa nodded, catching on. And they keep failing because they don't understand both sides of the equation. They don't have your knowledge of energy states, or our understanding of physical matter. Amy finished, already running calculations on her console. Peter looked between his crew and the Ethereals. What exactly are you suggesting? Before anyone could answer, the main Ravager ship fired again. The blast caught them at an angle, sending the Starseeker spinning. Emergency systems kicked in, stabilizing the ship, but the damage was done. Shields at 20%, Amy shouted. Port side energy grid is failing. Through the view screen, they watched in horror as several Ravager ships broke off from the main attack. The twisted biomechanical vessels headed toward a nearby star system. There's a colony in that system, Daniel said, checking his tactical display. 3 million people on the second planet. The Ethereals moved closer to the view screen, their light pulsing with unusual intensity. They will consume everything. The colony, the planets, even the star itself. Nothing will remain. Peter's jaw tightened. Not if we can help it. Angela, what's your idea? We need to show them what true transcendence looks like, she said, turning to the Ethereals. Not by forcing it, but by working together. Can you share your energy form with us? Not permanently, but enough to create a bridge between our two states of being. The Ethereals recoiled slightly. Such a merger would be dangerous, unpredictable. We have never attempted to share our state with physical beings. But it's possible. Lisa asked, studying their energy patterns. Theoretically, they admitted, but it would require perfect synchronization. The slightest mistake could destroy both forms. Another blast rocked the ship. Through the view screen, they could see more Ravager ships heading toward the colony. We're out of options, Peter said. Either we try this or millions die. And after that, they'll just keep spreading. The Ethereal's light flickered as they communicated among themselves. Finally, the leader moved forward. We will attempt it. But we need time to prepare, and a way to channel the merger safely. The deflector array, Amy suggested. I can modify it to act as a conduit for their energy patterns. It would let us control the flow, make it safer. Angela was already adjusting her sensors. And I can use the quantum scanners to monitor the merger, make sure we maintain stability. Lisa stood from her station. I can help coordinate. I've been studying their energy patterns. I might be able to help smooth the communication between our forms. Daniel kept firing at the approaching ships, buying them time. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast. Those colony ships aren't going to hold out long against a ravager attack. Peter looked at each member of his crew, then at the Ethereals. This is everyone's choice to make. What we're attempting has never been done before. It could kill us all. Better to die trying something new, Amy said, already working on the deflector modifications, than live knowing we did nothing. The Ethereal's light brightened with something that might have been admiration. Perhaps we were wrong about physical beings. Your willingness to risk everything, to face the unknown. It is not primitive. It is admirable. Save the compliments for later, Peter said, though he smiled slightly. Right now, we have work to do. Amy, how long until the deflector is ready? 10 minutes, maybe less. The ravagers will reach the colony in 15, Daniel reported. Peter nodded. Then we have just enough time to try something incredible or die trying. Let's show these ravagers what happens when ethereal beings and material warriors stop fighting each other and start fighting together. As the crew rushed to prepare for their desperate attempt, the ravager ships closed in around them. In the next few minutes, they would either make history or become another failed experiment in the evolution of life in the universe. Either way, nothing would ever be the same. Time was running out aboard the Starseeker. Engineer Amy Patterson's hands moved quickly over her console as she made the final adjustments to the deflector array. Sweat rolled down her face as another blast from the Ravager ships shook the vessel. Deflector modifications are almost complete, she reported, not looking up from her work. But we'll only get one shot at this. Angela Wright monitored the energy readings from her science station. The Ethereals floated nearby, their light forms pulsing with nervous energy as they prepared for the unprecedented merger of physical and energy beings. The quantum scanners are calibrated, Angela said. But these readings, I've never seen anything like them. Captain Peter Morrison stood in the center of the bridge, watching the main screen where the Ravager ships continued their relentless advance toward the colony. How much time until they reached the settlement? 8 minutes, Daniel Ross answered from tactical, his fingers never stopping their dance across the weapons controls. The colony's defenses won't last 5 minutes against those things. Lisa Carter stepped away from her communication station and approached the Ethereals. Are you ready? We need to coordinate this perfectly. The lead Ethereal's light flickered. We have prepared ourselves as best we can, but we must warn you. This merger will be intense. Your physical minds may not be able to handle the experience. We'll handle it, Peter said firmly. We have to. He turned to his crew. This is still voluntary. Anyone who wants to stay out of the merger can evacuate to the lower decks. Nobody moved. Amy looked up from her console for the first time in minutes. We're all in this together, Captain. The Ethereal's light brightened slightly. Your unity, it is not something we expected from physical beings. Perhaps there is more to learn from you than we realized. Another hit rocked the ship. Shields at 15%. Daniel called out. We're almost out of time. Deflector array is ready, Amy reported. Quantum field is stable. We can begin whenever you give the word, Captain. Peter took a deep breath and looked at each member of his crew. Remember your training. Focus on your tasks. We're about to do something no human has ever done before. He turned to the Ethereals. We're ready. Begin the merger. The Ethereals moved into position, spreading out to form a circle around the bridge crew. Their light began to pulse in a complex rhythm, and the air itself seemed to hum with energy. Quantum field is holding, Angela reported, her voice tense. Energy patterns are aligning. Lisa closed her eyes, concentrating on the Ethereal's energy signatures. I can feel them. They're trying to match our consciousness patterns. The lead Ethereal's voice echoed in their minds. Open yourselves to the energy. Do not resist the flow. Let your consciousness expand beyond your physical forms. The air on the bridge grew thick with shimmering light. Amy's modified deflector array created a containment field that helped channel and control the energy flow. The crew felt a strange tingling sensation as the Ethereal's energy began to merge with their physical forms. Heart rates elevated, Angela noted, checking the medical readings. Brain activity spiking across all frequencies, but holding stable. Peter felt it first, a sensation like his mind was expanding beyond his body. Colors became more vivid, and he could suddenly sense the energy flows around him. He could feel his crew's presence in a way that went beyond physical awareness. "This is," Lisa whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "I can see the energy patterns. Really see them." Daniel's tactical display suddenly seemed primitive compared to his new awareness of the space around them. "I can sense the Ravager ships. Their energy signatures. They're like wounds in space." Amy gasped as her perception of the ship's systems transformed. "The power flows. They're like rivers of light. I can see exactly how to optimize them." Her hands moved across her console with new purpose, guided by this enhanced understanding. The Ethereal's light had begun to dim as more of their energy merged with the crew. "Yes," they transmitted, "you begin to understand. But this is only the surface of what is possible." Angela's enhanced senses picked up something new. "Captain, the Ravager ships, they're reacting to the energy merger. Their patterns are changing." Through the view screen, they could see the biomechanical ships faltering in their advance. The twisted vessels seemed to shudder, as if confused by what they were detecting. "They sense the successful merger," the Ethereals explained. "It disturbs them. What we are achieving together is what they have tried and failed to do for millennia." Peter could feel the power flowing through him, the strange mixture of physical and energy states. It was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. "How long can we maintain this?" "Not long," Angela warned, checking her readings. "Our physical forms aren't designed for this kind of energy integration. We have maybe 10 minutes before the strain becomes too much." "Then let's make those 10 minutes count," Peter said. He could feel his crew's agreement through their shared consciousness. "Amy, can you channel this combined energy through our weapon systems?" "I think so," Amy replied, her enhanced understanding of the ship's systems guiding her hands. "The deflector array can be modified to act as a focusing lens. We can create a hybrid energy beam, part physical, part ethereal. The Ravagers won't be able to adapt to it," Daniel added, his tactical knowledge merging with his new energy awareness. "They've never encountered anything like this before." The massive Ravager ship turned its attention back to the Starseeker, its biomechanical surface writhing as it registered the threat. Green energy began to build up in its main weapon. "They're preparing to fire," Daniel reported. "Not if we fire first," Peter said. Through the merged consciousness, he could feel his crew working in perfect harmony. Amy channeled power through the modified systems, while Daniel targeted the weapons. Angela monitored the energy flows as Lisa helped maintain the delicate balance between physical and ethereal states. The Ethereals added their knowledge to the mix, helping to stabilize the incredible energies they were channeling. "Now," they transmitted, "while the merger is strongest. Strike now." Peter gave the order, though in their merged state, words were hardly necessary. "Fire." The Starseeker's weapons discharged, but what emerged was like nothing ever seen before. A beam of pure white light, shot through with threads of normal spacetime, lanced out toward the Ravager vessel. Where it struck, the hybrid ship's attempts at transcendence were finally answered, but not in the way they had hoped. The beam caught the Ravager ship just as it was preparing to fire its own weapon. The impact was spectacular. The biomechanical vessel seemed to freeze in space, its surface rippling as the combined physical ethereal energy tore through its corrupted systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the massive ship began to break apart, not in a normal explosion, but in a cascade of energy transformations. Its twisted attempt at combining matter and energy was finally resolved. But in reverse, the ship's form separated into its base components, matter and energy flying apart in a brilliant display. The smaller Ravager ships began to retreat, their own hybrid systems destabilizing in the presence of true transcendence. but the crew of the Starseeker could feel their time running out. The strain of maintaining the merger was beginning to tell. "We need to end this soon," Angela warned, her voice strained. "Our physical forms can't take much more." Through their shared consciousness, they could feel the Ethereal's agreement. The time had come to separate, but they had achieved something remarkable, something that would change both their species forever. The question was, could they hold it together long enough to finish what they had started? The destruction of the main Ravager ship lit up space like a new star being born. On the Starseeker's bridge, the merged crew and Ethereals fought to maintain their connection as the strain of their unified state grew stronger. 3 minutes until physical tolerance limits are reached, Angela Wright managed to say through gritted teeth. Even with the deflector array helping to channel the energies, their bodies were struggling to handle the power flowing through them. Captain Peter Morrison could feel the pressure building in his mind. Through their shared consciousness, he sensed the same from his crew. But he could also feel something else. The remaining Ravager ships weren't retreating in fear. They were regrouping. "They're changing their attack pattern," Daniel Ross reported, his enhanced awareness allowing him to track the enemy movements with unprecedented clarity. The smaller ships are combining, forming into larger units. Lisa Carter's merged consciousness picked up the shift in the Ravagers' energy signatures. They're learning, adapting, trying to match our merged state in their own way. The Ethereal's light pulsed with concern. Yes, this is how they survive, how they evolve. They take what they observe and corrupt it to serve their purpose. Through the view screen, they watched as the scattered Ravager ships began to join together. Their biomechanical forms twisted and merged, creating 3 larger vessels that pulsed with a sickly combination of green energy and organic matter. "Energy readings are off the scale," Amy Patterson called from her engineering station. "They're channeling power in a way that mimics our merger, but it's unstable, dangerous." Peter could feel the truth of her words through their shared consciousness. The Ravagers weren't achieving true transcendence. They were forcing a corrupt version of it, like a twisted mirror of what the humans and Ethereals had accomplished. The colony, Daniel reminded them, his tactical display showing the 3 newly formed Ravager ships moving toward the populated system. They're still going after it. Peter tried to think through the growing pressure in his head. How long until they reach the settlement? 4 minutes, Daniel answered. But we only have 3 minutes left in merged state. Then we need to stop them in 2, Peter said. Through their connection, his crew felt his determination, his refusal to let millions die while they had the power to prevent it. The Ethereal's consciousness brushed against theirs. "What you suggest is dangerous. Pushing the merger beyond safe limits could destroy both our forms." "Better that than watching another civilization fall to the Ravagers," Lisa said, her voice strained but certain. Amy's hands flew over her console, making adjustments with her enhanced understanding of the ship's systems. "I can redirect more power to the deflector array. Maybe buy us an extra minute, but the safety margins will be gone." "Do it," Peter ordered, though in their merged state, it was more of a shared decision than a command. Angela monitored the growing stress on their physical forms. "If we push too hard, the damage could be permanent. We might not be able to return to normal." The Ethereal's light flickered as they processed this. "You would risk permanent transformation, even knowing you might lose your physical form entirely." "We're not losing anything," Peter said firmly. "We're choosing to risk everything to save others." There's a difference. Through their shared consciousness, the Ethereals felt the truth in his words. They felt the crew's fear, yes, but also their determination, their willingness to sacrifice for a greater purpose. It was a kind of transcendence they had never considered before. The 3 Ravager ships accelerated toward the colony, their combined form grotesque but powerful. Green energy built up in their weapons, preparing to fire. "Their weapons are linked," Daniel reported. "They're going to fire together. The combined blast would destroy the entire colony in one shot." "Not if we stop them first," Peter said. He could feel his crew's agreement, their shared consciousness focusing on a single purpose. Amy, root everything we have into one final shot. Angela, help stabilize the energy patterns. Lisa, keep us linked with the Ethereals. Daniel, target their point of convergence. The crew moved as one, their merged state allowing them to work with perfect coordination. The Ethereals added their power to the mix, their light growing brighter as they pushed themselves to their limits. The Starseeker's systems groaned under the strain as they channeled more power than the ship was ever designed to handle. The deflector array glowed white-hot as it struggled to contain the energies flowing through it. 30 seconds until they're in firing range of the colony, Daniel called out. 20 seconds until total system overload, Amy added. Peter felt the pressure building to unbearable levels. Through their link, he could feel his crew's pain. The ethereal strain, the ship's systems screaming in protest. But he could also feel their unity, their shared purpose. Hold together, he urged, though whether he meant the ship, the merger, or all of them, he wasn't sure. Just a few more seconds. The Ravager ships reached their firing position, their weapons fully charged. Green energy swirled around them, ready to destroy an entire world. Now, Peter commanded. The Starseeker fired, but this time the beam was different. It wasn't just a combination of physical and ethereal energy. It was a pure expression of two species working in perfect harmony, each contributing their unique strengths to create something entirely new. The beam struck the point where the three Ravager ships converged, just as they were about to fire their combined weapon. For a moment, space itself seemed to hold its breath. Then reality tore open. The Ravagers' corrupt attempt at transcendence met true harmony head-on, and the result was catastrophic. Their forced merger collapsed in on itself, creating a cascade of energy reactions that ripped their combined form apart. The explosion was spectacular, a fusion of matter and energy that lit up the sector like a supernova. The Starseekers' shields barely held against the backwash, their own systems starting to fail. "We did it," Lisa whispered, as the light from the explosion began to fade. "The colony is safe." But their victory had come at a cost. Warning alerts blared across every console as the strain of their extended merger reached critical levels. "We need to separate now," Angela warned, her consciousness starting to fragment. "Any longer and we won't be able to return to our original states." The Ethereal's light was dangerously dim. Yes, but what we have achieved here, it changes everything. With the last of their coordinated strength, humans and Ethereals began the delicate process of unmerging. They had pushed the boundaries of both physical and energy existence, and now they had to find their way back. As their consciousness began to separate, one question remained. Would they be able to return to what they were before? Or had their desperate gamble changed them forever? The process of separation was like waking up from a dream, but slower and more painful. One by one, the crew of the Starseeker found their way back to their physical forms. The Ethereal's light gradually pulled away from them, reforming into distinct shapes near the bridge ceiling. Captain Peter Morrison opened his eyes, blinking against the sudden brightness of the normal bridge lighting. His head felt both empty and full. Empty without the shared consciousness he had experienced, but full of new understanding that hadn't been there before. "Status report," he managed to say, his voice rough. "Everyone okay?" Around the bridge, his crew stirred. Engineer Amy Patterson was the first to respond, though she had to grip her console for support as she stood. "Ship's systems are stabilizing," she reported. "We lost 30% of our power relays in that last shot, but main systems are holding." She paused, looking at her displays with new eyes. "It's strange. I can still see the energy flows, even though we're separated." Angela Wright nodded from her science station, running scans of both the crew and the Ethereals. "We've all been changed by the merger. Our brains are showing new neural patterns, increased activity in areas that were dormant before. The physical changes go both ways," Lisa Carter added, studying the Ethereals with her enhanced perception. "Their energy patterns are different too. More structured." The Ethereals moved closer, their light steadier than before, but somehow more substantial. Yes, they transmitted, though their mental voice seemed different now, clearer, more focused. The merger has affected us in ways we did not expect. We find ourselves more aware of the physical realm. Daniel Ross checked his tactical displays one last time, confirming that no trace of the Ravager ships remained. Well, whatever changes we've gone through, it worked. The colony is safe, and we just did what the Ethereals couldn't do in millennia. We stopped the Ravagers. Not just stopped them, Angela corrected, reviewing her readings. The energy cascade from that final blast did more than destroy those ships. It created a ripple effect through subspace. Any other Ravager ships in the sector would have been affected by the same energy pattern. You mean we didn't just save the colony? Peter said slowly. We might have found a way to stop the Ravagers permanently. The lead Ethereal's form brightened. Yes, a harmony we achieved between physical and energy states. It created something new. Something the Ravagers could not corrupt or adapt to, because it required true cooperation, not forced absorption. Amy looked up from her console, her expression thoughtful. The Ravagers kept failing because they tried to force transcendence through consumption and control. But real evolution comes through understanding and working together. Lisa finished, through recognizing that different forms of existence aren't better or worse. They're just different, and they're stronger together. Peter stood from his command chair, steadier now as his body adjusted to its enhanced state. The question is, where do we go from here? We're not purely physical anymore, but we're not energy beings either. We're something in between. As are we, the Ethereals transmitted. Our interaction with physical matter is changed. We find ourselves reluctant to return to our former state of pure energy existence. Angela's console beeped as new data came in. The changes seem to be stable, at least for now. Our physical forms have adapted to handle higher energy states, and the Ethereal's energy patterns have gained some of our material structure. A perfect balance, Lisa said, smiling. Just like we achieved in that final battle. The bridge crew looked at each other, then at the Ethereals. They could all feel it, a new kind of understanding that went beyond their former limitations. They weren't just changed physically. Their entire way of thinking had evolved. I'm receiving transmissions from the colony, Lisa reported. They want to know what happened. They saw the light show, but their sensors couldn't make sense of it. How could they? Daniel said. We barely understand it ourselves. Peter straightened his uniform, a habit that seemed charmingly physical now. Well, we'll need to explain it somehow. And not just to the colony. What we've discovered here. This new form of existence, this way of combining physical and energy states, it could change everything. It already has, Amy said, running her hand along her console with new appreciation for both its physical structure and the energy flowing through it. Look at how we see things now. Technology, space, even our own bodies. Everything looks different when you can perceive both its physical and energy aspects. The Ethereals moved to the center of the bridge, their light forms taking on a slightly more solid appearance. We propose an exchange of knowledge. We have much to learn from you about the value of physical existence, and you have only begun to explore the possibilities of energy manipulation. A permanent partnership? Peter asked, though he could tell from the crew's expressions that they already liked the idea. More than that, the lead Ethereal transmitted a new path of evolution, not away from physical form, as we once believed, but toward a true balance of both states. Together, we could guide others to this understanding. Angela's eyes lit up with scientific curiosity. The research possibilities are endless. We could develop new technologies, new ways of space travel, new forms of communication, new ways to defend against threats like the Ravagers, Daniel added. If there are more of them out there, we'll be ready. And new ways to help people, Lisa said. Imagine being able to teach others how to perceive both physical and energy states. It could revolutionize everything from medicine to space exploration. Peter looked around at his crew. Human, but now something more, changed but still themselves. He looked at the Ethereals, energy beings who had learned the value of physical form. He thought about how far they had all come from their first meeting, when the Ethereals had looked down on physical existence and the humans had been suspicious of pure energy beings. "Well," he said, a smile forming on his face, "it seems we have work to do. Amy, how long until the ship's systems are ready for travel?" "Give me 2 hours to stabilize the power grid," she replied. "Less, now that I can see exactly where the energy flows need adjusting." "Good. Lisa, send a message to Starfleet Command. Tell them," he paused, considering his words carefully. "Tell them we've made first contact with a new species, prevented a major threat, and discovered something that could change the future of both our civilizations. But warn them they might want to sit down before they read the full report." The bridge crew chuckled, and even the Ethereal's light pulsed with what could only be described as amusement. As they began their preparations for the journey home, they all understood that this was just the beginning. They had started as ethereal beings and material warriors, separated by their differences. They had emerged as something new, proof that evolution didn't have to mean leaving things behind. Sometimes, the greatest step forward was learning to bring different worlds together. The Starseeker's engines hummed to life, powered by a perfect blend of physical technology and energy manipulation. As they set course for home, they carried with them not just a victory over the ravagers, but a new vision for the future, one where the boundaries between physical and energy, material and ethereal, were not walls to break down, but bridges to cross together.